right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to share with you the Port of Long Beach's plan for our proposed Pier Wind facility, a new purpose-built facility to support the staging and assembly of floating offshore wind turbines. And I want to start first by giving you a little bit of background and context on the Port of Long Beach, which is the premier U.S. gateway for trans-Pacific trade. We were founded in 1911 and have been developing and expanding our port ever since to meet increasing cargo demands. Today, we encompass about 3,200 acres of land, 35 miles of waterfront, and 80 berths. Known for our innovative goods movement, safety, environmental stewardship, and top-notch customer service, we were voted by industry leaders as the best West Coast seaport in North America for the 6th year in a row. Last year, we moved a record 9.6 million TEUs, which is the standard unit of measurement for those container boxes, making us the second busiest container port in the nation. Annually, we move goods valued at over $300 billion, and all that trade activity makes us an economic engine for California, supporting over 1.1 million jobs in the state and generating over $24 billion in state and local taxes annually. But we're more than one of the busiest ports in the nation. We're also the green port, with a long history of ambitious environmental policies to reduce our impact on the environment and the community from port operations, starting with our landmark green port policy in 2005, which we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of this year. Along with our Clean Air Action Plan, we developed in partnership with our neighbor, the Port of Los Angeles. And we've been very successful to date, reducing diesel particulate matter 92%, NOx 71%, and SOx 98%, all while cargo has increased. But we are not done yet. The latest update to our Clean Air Action Plan has established ambitious zero-emission goals, and we're forecasting about a 6-fold increase in annual power consumption as a result. Which is why supporting California's development of offshore wind is important to the Port of Long Beach, so there's sufficient, reliable, resilient, renewable energy powering our grid as we plug more of our operations into grid. And of course, the cost of that power is important to our business and our competitiveness. So facilitating efficiencies and economies of scale is a key aspect of our strategy. It's going to require a multi-port strategy to develop floating offshore wind with manufacturing and fabrication facilities for those large components and subassemblies that are delivered to staging and assembly sites to assemble those foundations and turbines before being towed out to the wind farm that'll be serviced by operations and maintenance facilities. I'm going to focus in on the critical enabling staging and assembly sites and talk about the key requirements to support those types of operations. Starting with the foundation assembly, which requires a heavy lift wharf to receive those subassemblies and a large area on the land to assemble multiple foundations at the same time. So one foundation is complete about every 1 to 2 weeks, which was required to meet the production rates of these large-scale commercial wind farms. Once assembled, that foundation is transferred from the land into the water, which requires a heavy lift wharf and deep, calm water. This shows the use of a semi-submersible barge, which would need a deep sinking basin so it could sink down and the foundation would float off before being pulled over to the quay, where large cranes will then integrate those components onto the foundation. That's going to require a heavy lift wharf to support those cranes and a large area to stage those components, along with a long enough quay to support component delivery and integration activities at the same time. It also requires deep, calm water with no wave action, which is important because small movements in the foundation can translate into large movements at the top, which is a challenge for those integration activities. Each turbine will then go through pre-commissioning testing, which requires pedestrian access and power. And the staging and assembly site will require a significant area for wet storage of fully assembled foundations waiting to be integrated in the quay and fully assembled turbines waiting for that tow-out operation. And this is important because foundation assembly, integration, and tow-out operations each have different variables and production rates, so that wet storage provides a buffer between these operations to help facilitate an efficient serial production. Once weather and mid-ocean conditions are right, that fully assembled turbine is then towed out from wet storage to the wind farm for the final installation. So the staging and assembly site needs to support the many vessels needed for that tow-out operation. And each turbine will be about the size of the Eiffel Tower. So the staging and assembly site cannot be behind a bridge, which makes it extremely challenging to find suitable sites on the West Coast for that assembly operation. And it will need to facilitate an efficient serial production to assemble approximately 1,000 turbines to achieve California's ambitious goal of 25 gigawatts by 2045. Which is why, in response to the critical need, the Port of Long Beach developed the Pier Wind concept to meet the unique requirements for staging and assembly. Because we believe the Port of Long Beach has unique qualities as part of the largest industrial port complex in the nation. Our outer harbor area is behind a federal breakwater with already deep, calm water where new land can be built for the proposed Pier Wind facility. This area is out in front of our bridge and adjacent to one of the deepest and widest federal channels, so there's direct access to the open ocean with no bridge restrictions. We're also adjacent to the state's largest skilled workforce and manufacturing base with robust transportation and supply chain logistic networks and extensive experience building this type of large-scale marine infrastructure. Pier Wind would be the nation's largest purpose-built offshore wind facility, designed to be an efficient floating offshore wind turbine assembly hub, with large areas for staging integration, co-located with large areas to assemble multiple foundations at the same time, and a continuous heavy lift wharf to support those various operations, with docks to support pre-commissioning testing, and large wet storage areas for floating foundations waiting to be integrated at the quay with deep sinking basin to support the foundation operations. Another large wet storage area to support staging of the fully assembled turbines waiting for tow-out, and docks to support the vessels needed for that tow-out operation. And as the green port, it'll be designed to be the cleanest and greenest offshore wind terminal operation. All of these features are designed to work together to facilitate an efficient serial production, reduce risks, and achieve economies of scale, all of which will help lower the cost of that energy. So Pier Wind will also support thousands of good-paying, family-sustaining wage jobs, with an estimated 4,200 average annual jobs for the construction of Pier Wind and another 1,800 jobs for the assembly operation. Along with a pipeline project, this will create a robust offshore wind market that could unlock tens of thousands of additional jobs and investments throughout the supply chain. The port has also developed a comprehensive outreach and engagement plan to identify key issues, set shared goals, and ensure a broad range of perspectives and input is considered throughout the planning process, which we believe will lead to a more successful and sustainable outcome. This past year, we also entered into an MOU with Humboldt and State Lands Commission to collaborate on areas such as permitting, community and tribal engagement, workforce development, so that we can support the responsible, equitable, and sustainable development of offshore wind in California. Because it's only through those strong partnerships, close collaboration, robust engagement, and a whole-of-government approach that we can achieve our collective goals on energy, the environment, and the economy. And that's what brings us and unites us together here today at the Pacific Offshore Wind Summit. I'll leave you one last final thought. As Peter Drucker said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So together, we're not just meeting the moment, we are shaping what comes next. So thank you so much for joining us here today, and enjoy the summit.